Good morning, everyone of our JCSF English Literature class. Today we shall be moving forward into another text titled Wuthering. Oh, sorry. I remember the last time I asked, I said I would give the students the opportunity to choose which of the two non-African texts we should go into first, whether it should be Wuthering by Emily Bronte or Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. And I'm not sure. I think we have a student with us. Do you have a preference? Do you have the text you want us to go into first? Mr. Jason, is the Obina Igwe a student?
Hello, sir. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm an aspirant for JAM, so not an SSC student, but a JAM bite.
Okay. I think we would work something out with Mr. Jason to see how we can schedule in preparation for JAM, since most of the recommended text for SSC will also be used for UTME. So I think this class would be quite beneficial for you too.
Okay, sir.
All right. Yeah. Now we go into Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, and when I tell you this is it's a classic. There's no doubt about it. It's a classic, and it's the first Gothic novel ever written. I think The Castle of Otranto should be the first Gothic novel. Wuthering Heights was written and published in 1847, if I am right. Now, let's begin the analysis let's begin to discuss the text. And I'll begin with an introduction. Wuthering Heights is, how do I put it? It's a novel that focuses on two major things. When you read the text from the beginning till the very end, you will realize that the thematic is revenge and romantic love. It talks about revenge, and it talks about revenge and romantic love. And at that time, this is how I should best put it. It talks about two families. It tells the stories of two families who lived in enmity. They are rivals, just like we have it in George Eliot's Silas Manor too. For those who have read Silas Manor, you discover that it also talks about families. If you've read Romeo and Juliet too, you discover that it talks about two major families, Montagues and the Capulets. So same as Wuthering Heights too, since there is obviously element of love in this text, romantic love. So it talks about two families that are rivals, and they lived in two different mansions a little bit far, not too far, but a little bit far from each other. And in between them, there is a moor. That is a kind of a bush. There is no house in between them. The two houses are like facing each other, a little bit far from each other. And they arrive as there is no love in between them per se. And their two mansions individually symbolizes or represents different things. So these two families, the first one is the Enshaws family. And the Enshaws family, they live at the height. That is the Wuthering Height itself, which is at the edge of the moor. And they are quite harsh. They are unrefined. They are crude. Just like where the mansion is placed, they act, even though they are learned, they act uncivilized. While on the other hand, we also have the other family called the Linton family. These ones, they are like the genteel. They are refined. They are calm. They are hospitable. And we'll get to know about that in the course of the novel while analyzing, because it gets to a point, one of the Enshaws family's child, the female child, fled home and wandered into the Linton's family's house, got injured by their dog, and they took charge of her care, and they accommodated her for some days till she was fully healed. And when she has fully recovered, that was when she was sent back or taken back to Wuthering Height. So on the other hand, the Lintons live at Thrushcross Grange. Now let's get it. Two families. Enshaws family, they live at Wuthering Height, and the Linton family, they live at Thrushcross Grange. And on a very special occasion, now in these two families, they have lots of workers, they have lots of maids. They have lots of maids, they have lots of workers. Obviously, they are rich. Now, and Mr. Enshaw frequently, often, or let me say often, he travels often. And luckily, or the perfect word shouldn't be luckily, unfortunately rather, on a very special journey of his to Liverpool, he traveled to Liverpool, and upon his return, he had promised his children that he would bring gifts for them, definitely. So upon his return from Liverpool, he brought the gift as promised, but he also brought something else. He brought what? Something else. He brought I called it something because that is the context in which the thing is referred to. The thing is reduced from being an human because of its color, because of its size, because of its class, because of every circumstances around it. It is reduced to a mere animate creature which is not human. And often in the text, it would be referred to as a gypsy-like creature. Why? Because the creature isn't white. The creature isn't white. The creature was an orphan. The parents are unknown. The creature was an orphan. The creature was poor and helpless. So at that point in time, Mr. Enshaw took it upon himself. He took it upon himself to take care took it upon himself to take care of this little creature. So he brought him home as a little boy. So Mr. Henshaw brought home this foundling to live in the family. And as he was brought home, Mr. Henshaw saw that he wasn't warmly accepted in his home. There was some sort of hostility towards him. So Mr. Henshaw increased his love for him, started taking care of him, started defending him, started shielding him from all of abuse and insult. And fortunately for him, because he grew up to be a little bit strong and smart, Mr. Henshaw eventually tended to love him than his actual son. So this brought about a complex feelings of jealousy and rivalry. And that is a jealousy and rivalry between Mr. Henshaw's first and only son, the eldest child, who happens to be the eldest child, and this creature. Now, let me take you back. Henshaw's family, they stay at Wuthering. Linton's family stays at Thrushcross Grange. Henshaw's family had two children. Henshaw's family had two children. The Linton's family also had two children. Now, the name of the two Henshaw's family's children, they are a boy and a girl, or let me say male and a female. Linton's family's children also are a male and a female. Please take note of it. Don't mix anything up there. Henshaw's family's two children are Hindley and Catherine. Hindley and Catherine. Linton's family's two children are Edgar and Isabella. Now, the complex soulful alliance we would eventually see or talk about in this text is that the little creature Mr. Henshaw brought from Liverpool, his name is Heathcliff, or Heathcliff, as you might want to call it. That is the name of the, so he is not part of the family, but when he was brought home, he eventually became part of the family, even though throughout the text, he never adopted the name Henshaw as a surname. Now, what makes this alliance complicated now is that as Catherine and Heathcliff, the foundling that was brought home by their father, they grew up together, playing together, and they eventually grew up to like each other. They have this fondness for each other, which remained officially undisclosed. It wasn't pointed out at any point in time. It wasn't mentioned. Neither Heathcliff confessed this love for Catherine, nor does she, on the other hand, confess her love for Heathcliff. They were mute about it. But it was getting obvious. The maids in the house, the brother to Catherine, that is Hindley, every one of them noticed this. They knew something was actually turning up, and they were quite surprised as to what a child of such an aristocratic class, what kind of feeling such a child would develop for obviously someone who is a nobody. So on one special occasion, I told you they wandered off, crossed over the moors, and never knew that they were already in the Trust Cross Grange. They came in through the back door. They came in through the back fence, or let me call it back gate, and they were wandering in the garden. Then they were attacked by the Linton's dogs, which caught Catherine, and Heathcliff fled. So Catherine was rescued by Edgar and other maids in their house, or servant. Let me put it that way. I think maid should be female. By the servant maids and the likes in their very house, and their mother, Mrs. Linton, nursed Catherine back to life. So it was at that point in time that Edgar Linton got the opportunity, got the chance to get closer to Catherine. Without wasting our time, they will eventually marry each other. They will eventually marry each other. Because by the time Catherine got back home, after spending about like 10, 14 days in Linton's house, by the time Catherine got back home, Edgar began to visit. Yes, Edgar started visiting Catherine at Wuthering Heights, even though Catherine has a heart attached to someone else. But she was shy, and she doesn't know what to expect from her relatives if she had to confess to them that she is in love with Heathcliff. So when she was queried by Nellie Dane, who happens to be one of the narrators in this in the text, when she was queried that Edgar has been visiting you for a while now, this is like the second or third time, don't you tell him about Heathcliff, or don't you have anything with Heathcliff? Then Nellie, Catherine, just to save herself, uttered some expression that, wow, what will she do with Heathcliff? Not knowing that Heathcliff was hiding behind the door. He was eavesdropping. Upon hearing that, Heathcliff never waited for Catherine to finish a statement. Heathcliff just left, packed the stains, and left Wuthering Heights to never come back for a long period of time. So she sensed that Heathcliff must have heard what she had said, and this must have made him to leave the house without bidding farewell. She had no option than to marry Edgar. Then, many years later, after the marriage, I think she was already pregnant for Edgar. Then Heathcliff returned. Hindley also had married someone else. Hindley had gotten married to someone else. They had a child called Etin. And being a spoiled brat, he is more of a prodigal son. He is more of a prodigal son. He is a gambler. He is a drunk. He philanders with women. So these are the things that made it. These are the bad vices, or these are the vices, that would be tautology. These are the vices that made it difficult for him to manage his father's property. after the father and the mother's demise. So, after many years, Heathcliff returned. And when he returned as a blessed and a rich man. He came with money. So upon his return, probably he had left to prove himself, but the source of his money, the source of his wealth was never disclosed. The source of his money and the source of his wealth was not at any point disclosed to us. And by the time we begin the analysis of this text properly, maybe the chapter by chapter analysis, if time permits, you will discover that all these I'm saying comes in form of a flashback. The story had actually begun, the chapter 1 actually began from Heathcliff being the sole owner of both Wuthering and Thrushcross Grange, and a traveler came in to rent a house, that is to rent Thrushcross Grange from him, and this man, that is Mr. Lockwood, who had come to rent Thrushcross Grange, had to, or one of his visits to Wuthering had to stay back because of the bad weather, and he couldn't journey back to town. He had to stay back because of the bad weather, and he was made to sleep in a room which was formerly preoccupied by Catherine while she was still alive before she got married to Edgar. But there have been myths, when we say Gothic novel, it talks about horrors, it talks about death, it talks about mystery, haunted houses, mansion, darkness, underground tunnels, and the likes. All these mysterious events. That is what you should expect in a Gothic novel. So there have been myths that Catherine's ghost is always roaming the mansion. So to satisfy our curiosity, let me call her the chief servant or the chief maid, Nellie, instead of keeping Mr. Lockwood in just any other room, decided to open exactly Catherine's room for Mr. Lockwood. And by opening the room for him, he dreamt twice, and he discovered that there is a ghost, a female ghost, that keeps the window opened, keeps the window shutting itself and opening and closing, and besides that, the ghost, Mr. Lockwood discovered a diary in that very room, and that diary belonged to Catherine. So it is in that diary that he discovered some facts written by Catherine herself about everything that happened in the play, everything about her life before her death. As a curious person, he started to ask Nellie Dane and even Mr. Lockwood to get information about who Catherine was and where she is and the circumstances behind her death, and why our ghost kept roaming the mansion. And as regards of his inquisitiveness, besides Heathcliff's son, because the mother already died too, beside Heathcliff's son, who was 18, who his father never treated like a son because of the hatred for him and his mother, I'll go on to tell you who the mother is. There is another female person. There is another female almost of the same age or a little bit younger than Ethel who lived in the house. She is referred to as Katie. Katie happened to be Catherine's daughter. The relationship between Catherine and Edgar upon the event of Catherine's delivery, she died. She died moments after the delivery, and they had to name the daughter Catherine as well. So the daughter of Catherine also bears Catherine, but in the text, so as to distinguish between the two, Catherine would be referred to as the mother, while Katie or Kate will be referred to as the daughter. I believe you can hear me, Mr. Jason.
Yes, yes.
All right, sir. So, to distinguish between the two, the mother and the daughter, Catherine will be referred to as the mother, while Katie will be referred to as the child. So, as a result of Mr. Lockwood's curiosity, and upon hearing the fact that this child is also Katie, he became confused and he began to ask that because in the diary he learned that Heathcliff, that she loved Heathcliff, but for one reason or the other, she ended up with Edgar. So she was, Mr. Lockwood had to ask that, because he was considering the age gap between Heathcliff and this Katie, not knowing that the original Katie, the mom, was late, and this is the daughter. So she had to ask whether Katie was Heathcliff's wife, and he was insulted by Heathcliff. I told you some features, some of the vices of the Wuthering Heights people. They are rude, they are crude, they are harsh. All these words describe who they are. Now, upon Heathcliff's return, when Heathcliff returned, he discovered what has happened. So he came back. He could have stayed back where he was, but he came back solely because he wanted to revenge. He wanted to revenge on Hindley, the treatment he received from Hindley. He wanted to revenge on Catherine, what Catherine said that uttered his feeling. He wanted to revenge on the servants and maids in Wuthering Heights. More importantly, he wanted to revenge on Edgar, the person who stole the love of his who stole the love of his life. So he came back purposely for revenge, because since he had become successful and rich where he was coming from, there's no point in him. There is no point for him to come back. Yet he decided to come back. And when he came back, he saw that Catherine was already married. So he planned his revenge. And what did he do? He started visiting. Catherine at Thrushcross Grange. Catherine was already married. Catherine, upon seeing him, had her mind fluttered again. She began to develop. Okay, don't let me say develop, because the feeling was already there. our interest, our love for Heathcliff was rekindled again upon sighting Heathcliff, forgetting that she was already married and that maybe she already had a child or she was about to. She forgot all this and I was focused on having Heathcliff back again, which Edgar fought tirelessly to ensure that it doesn't happen. Now, to actualize his revenge plan, this is what Heathcliff did. Heathcliff forced himself and tricked Edgar's sister. You know, Edgar's sister is Isabella. So Heathcliff forced himself, tricked Isabella, and they got married, even against Edgar's wish, because Edgar never wanted something of such to happen. But it happened anyway. And as a result of this, they had a child together, and the child was named Linton. You know, that is the Isabella's father's name. That is Isabella's father's name. And the family's name is the Linton. Catherine's family's name is the Enshaw. I believe you get that. So don't mix it up again when we say Linton. Linton is the child Isabella had for Heathcliff. Do you get that? Linton is the child Isabella had for, and so what did Heathcliff, after actualizing that, what did he do afterwards? He ensured that he gained ownership to Wuthering Heights. How did he do this? When he came back as a rich man, he studied, and having studied the behavior of Hindley, being a drunk, a gambler, and all that, he started lending him money to ruin his life, money to gamble on. So as Hindley's debt kept on accumulating, he eventually had to forfeit the house to Heathcliff. So he forfeited the house. He couldn't cope with this. As a result of his inability to cope with what has happened, his life degenerated so much again, and he died. Hindley died, and Heathcliff became the sole owner of Wuthering Heights. Now, what did he intend to do again? What did he intend to do again? Then, not long after, Edgar also died. And when Edgar died, you know, Edgar had a child with Catherine, called young Katie or Catherine, young Catherine or Katie or Katie or Kate. So Heathcliff's intention was for his son. Heathcliff's intention was for his son, Linton, to marry Catherine. And the moment his son marries young Catherine, he knows that his son has a very bad health condition. and that the child would die very soon. So the moment Edgar died and Catherine was, Catherine died before Edgar. The moment after that, he started finding a way of bringing young Katie back to Wuthering Heights, so that young Katie would know more, get to know about our mother, stay in Wuthering Heights too. And by staying in Wuthering Heights, he will be able to achieve his evil machination. And by his evil machination, I mean that he will be able to work on convincing on it. There is nothing like convincing here. He will be able to force his plan on his ailing son, Linton, and young Catherine. And the moment they get married, he knew that very soon his own child will die. And when his child, his son, when his son Linton dies, he intentionally also named his son Linton, so that they would believe that he is the owner he is the sole heir to the Linton's mansion, Thrush Cross Grange. So that when by the time his son dies, Katie will not be able to gain ownership of Thrush Cross Grange, and Thrush Cross Grange would eventually become his. This plan came to fruition. It happened. And shortly later, his son died. So Heathcliff became the sole owner of both Wuthering Heights and Thrush Cross Grange. He started managing both, which was the reason why Lockwood came to town to rent Thrush Cross Grange for a period of time. Now, later on, to shorten things, because this first session might end very soon, to shorten things, Heathcliff himself died mysteriously. Heathcliff died mysteriously, and after his death, Ayrton, Hindley's son, the true heir to Wuthering Heights, and young Catherine, the only surviving child for the Linton that comes from Catherine Henshaw and Edgar Linton's relationship, they eventually got married. They eventually got married. So only the children from the second generation, that is young Katie and Etin Henshaw, they are the one that survived to go beyond the destructive passion in their mutual love. So structurally, Mr. Jason, how many more minutes do I have? Do I have 3 minutes?